Traffic News on KWNK from NevadaBike.org, hosted by Clutch Creative. I'm Kai Plascon, right on. Free bike rides are every Wednesday around sunset at Believe Plaza in Reno and at the Arts District in Las Vegas. Bring bike lights. The city of Henderson, Nevada is using backlash against already illegal e-motorcycles to pass restrictions on regular bicycle use. High-speed e-motorcycles are already illegal. The new law in Henderson reinforces that, but also gives police an excuse to stop regular bike riders to make sure they have a front headlight, a rear reflector, a bell or a horn, and functional brakes. They can get a ticket of up to $400 if they don't have those things. They also require kids to wear helmets now, which is a major reason why kids don't ride bikes. Nevada lawmakers are considering new regulations for e-bikes. They are gathering testimony from transportation agencies and school districts to understand how they're being used. Assemblywoman Brittany Miller is overseeing the study, which will include looking at what laws exist in other states. Drivers have already hit 303 students in Clark County this year who are on their way to and from school. 46% of those students were on e-bikes or e-scooters. Also in Las Vegas, a cyclist didn't stop for a stop sign and then was hit and killed by an underage drunk driver. In Reno, don't forget about the Sierra Vista Spring Bike Festival on May 3rd. It's from 10 to 4 p.m. at Sierra Vista Park with raffles, vendors, food, and beverage trucks, too. The Nevada Bicycle Coalition is going to the National Bike Summit in Washington, D.C. this week. We're going to be meeting with experts and congresspeople to advocate for safe, accessible, and sustainable transportation for all Nevadans. Our delegation includes Scott Hall, Outreach Director for the Nevada Bicycle Coalition, Jennifer Gruby, Board of Directors for the Southern Nevada Bicycle Coalition, Malaya Harding, the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance Goodnow Fellow, and a UNR Civil Engineering student. A City of Reno project is going to be featured at that National Bike Summit. They installed candlesticks near Libby Booth Elementary and street murals on the road. It's the first project of its kind in Reno. The kids contributed to the mural design. It has various modes of transportation like spaceships, teleportation, school buses, dolphins, and more. It was painted by Nathaniel Benjamin, a UNR graduate and a founding member of Leica Press. The project costs $11,600. The city traffic engineer is going to be gathering data over the next 2 years to see how effective it is at reducing accidents and improving safety. Down in Las Vegas, Congresswoman Dina Titus helped expand the RTC's bike share program with 100 new e-assist bikes and 200 docks. Stations are planned at bus stops from Charleston to Russell and potentially onto the UNLV's campus. The e-bikes and the docks help connect transit and make it easier to get to school, work, and local businesses. E-bikes are also clean, affordable transportation for Las Vegans, for students, and for visitors. The network helps build stronger first and last mile connections to transit. This week on Bike Life Radio, we're talking to the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. Listen anywhere at 5:30 on Sunday on KWNKradio.org. That's it for traffic news from NevadaBike.org. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. How long it goes? Do you have 40 minutes?
Yeah, I can do that. So it's like a kind of like a conversation.
Yeah, it is.
You're not just looking for like a couple quotes that you'll edit and then like put in this little.
It's a conversation.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scoot all the way up.
All right.
There we go. Because otherwise, my arm gets really tight.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
So you're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. We're talking to Tom Albright. He is the president of the Truckee Meadows Bike Alliance. And you've been president for how long now?
Just over 2 years, Kai.
And you have an event coming up, don't you? I want to get that over with right away and talk about that.
Oh, we've got all kinds of events coming up, actually. But let me guess, what you might be referring to is our Northern Nevada Reno Sparks Bike Summit. And this is really an event that targets leaders involved in agencies, businesses, nonprofits, and clubs to get together and identify common concerns, areas for collaboration so that we can speak with one voice in matters that are important for biking.
Yeah. So, what is it gonna be like when people show up? What's gonna happen?
Yeah. So we're gonna have a part of the thing that we identified, and I want to give some credit to the Reno Bike Project and Andy over there for giving us kind of the approval for this and helping to brainstorm. We realized that there needs to be more conversation and collaboration. And I think that begins with people knowing each other. We have a super, super active, creative, and interesting bike scene here in Reno, but I feel that we don't talk enough. And so we wanted to just provide a forum where everybody could get together and get to know each other, because that's how it all starts.
Is there something in particular that you're excited, a group that you're excited to have there?
I think it's really the combination, and I really can't take away any single entity because they're all so important. We really need the businesses. Historically, businesses have played a big role, bike businesses, in making sure there's safe and fun places for people to ride and people have access to bikes. And I feel like that's a tough business to be in, and we need to have support those local businesses. And I also think they have a lot to offer our community. We've got different nonprofits with different missions, but also a lot of shared alignment. And then we have agencies with various responsibilities for safety, for transportation, for outdoor recreation, for therapeutic, adaptive recreation, and things for people with disabilities. And it's all super important, and that's why we're really excited to bring everyone together.
Neat. The Northern Nevada Business Association is supportive of biking, and they were supportive of us at the Center Street fight, and they're supportive of this network downtown, which is interesting. But they might be somebody to potentially invite as well. Yeah, so you're excited about the whole. The general public can't attend this. This is mainly for leaders. So if somebody wants to participate in the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, what do you suggest they do?
Well, we have a calendar that we maintain online with events. But first and foremost, I would say get on our newsletter and follow our social media. So there's Bike Washo on Instagram and Truckee Meadows Bike Alliance on Facebook. And if you go to our webpage, bikewasho.org, you can find a sign up to the email list, which we use pretty sparingly. So when we use it, it's important.
Yeah. We're talking to Tom Albright. He is the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. And he brought his bike into the house to do this interview. Tell us a little bit about your bike.
So I, like most people, started on a so-called acoustic bike. Your standard pedal bike for most of my life. And then e-bikes came along. I thought, well, that's kind of neat, but not really for me. But a few years back during COVID, like the time when a lot of people re-examined what they did, they tried new things. We decided to get an e-bike for the family with a step-through frame, so it would fit every member of the family. And, within...
Like all 4 people, 5 people?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all at that time, we were all middle school age and above. So we were all the size where if you just adjust the seat, you could basically fit that bike comfortably.
Oh, each person could ride it, not put all 4 people on it at once.
No, we're not quite there yet. I think the wattage needs to go up a little bit for that. But we do ride 2 people a lot. But anyway, within 6 months, there was a big appetite in the family for more. And then so that allowed us to kind of specialize into niches. So I have an e-bike that's kind of my light road bike style feel, and that's what this is. It's really nimble and quick, and it doesn't have as much power or battery, but it's also lighter. But I also have a heavier one that's more of a comfort bike. And then maybe my favorite is a cargo bike, because that's what allowed our family to basically drop down the number of cars that we had, save a lot of money, and just have more fun. And we can use that for taking the dog to the vet, taking the kids to school, for grocery shopping, and in addition to commuting, and even the occasional Home Depot run.
I was just talking to somebody else who had sold their car and bought an e-bike, and they estimated, I'm a little skeptical, but they estimated they only spent $50 total in all of last year maintaining their e-bike, commuting all year long. And I think it's possible, assuming you don't get a popped tire or you only have one or something like that. What would you say are your savings?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm really glad you asked that for a couple of reasons. I think about it a lot because I'm very like conservative our family is very conservative in our budgeting and things like that. You save, well, according to the AAA, if we were to buy a new car today, including, a standard amount of financing that very few of us can afford to buy a car cash these days, right? It's really, really close to $20,000 a year when you spread the depreciation, insurance, the financing, all of that thing, the maintenance of operating a car. So, okay, let's get a used car. Maybe that cuts it down to about half. But most people are still looking at nearly, $10,000 a year for a reasonable, serviceable used car to maintain. So by shedding that, that saves us a tremendous amount of money. And right now, oil prices are spiking again. And, personally, I don't road trips. Okay. Cars. I'm not a zero cars guy, but I'm a fewer cars guy for sure. It doesn't it's not like it doesn't hurt our pocketbook a little bit, but we're much more insulated, to those kinds of shocks. But honestly, the bigger thing is that like the physical and the mental health aspects, mood, all that stuff, just in so much of a better mood because I've got that built-in exercise every day.
We're talking to Tom Albright. He's the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. Tom, you 2 years ago, you became the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. What were you thinking then at the time when you took it over?
What have I gotten myself into? I had to fill the space that was occupied by someone who's very talented and hardworking and dedicated to the cause. None other than a certain Kai Plascon. And the things that I saw Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance building at that time really impressed me. They're working on the Center Street thing. They had these fun events. They got together. They were doing some cool stuff. So it was kind of intimidating, frankly. But luckily, the board has a diverse range of talents and skills and everything that they bring to the table. So, no single person has to know how to do everything. There's a lot of knowledge in the board, and people really help kind of transition me into it. Now, after a couple of years, I've got some confidence and putting on coming up with some new initiatives and new things that we're really excited about.
Yeah. Bikewashoe.org if you're interested in learning more about the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You have more confidence now. When did you start to feel that? What happened? Was there an aha moment? I can do, whatever I want, or, how did that evolve?
Honestly, things really started to click towards the end of that second year. And it was also kind of induced, I have to be honest, a little bit by some panicking.
Panicking?
Yeah, just sort of this realization. Some good and bad things happen. I'll explain that a little bit. We had a bit of a surge in financial support from people. And, the goal of a nonprofit is not to sit on money. It's to use the resources that people have entrusted in you to advance the mission that people want to get behind. And so we had some more resources sort of come our way to allow us to be more ambitious. But honestly, a really huge catalyst, and this is the sad part, was the number of roadway fatalities that we saw in the region, including, they're all devastating. They're all very tragic. But there was one that in particular, because the family chose to name our organization as one of their destinations for sort of memorial giving. This is the tragic death of Susan May Goodenow in November in Washoe County, southern Washoe County. Just the gravity of that and just sort of feeling like, wow, these folks wanted to give something in her memory, and it just added this level of importance and urgency to it. And it was really shortly after that we started to take on more initiatives. Like we started to realize, hey, we need to put out an annual report. So we got busy on that. We need to start being really formalized about our recognizing donations and donors and supporters and things like that. We need to, be really aggressive and serious on our social media, and we need to do some things. And we also had this big workshop or this event commemorating the World Day of Remembrance for victims of roadway crashes, I think. And we brought in an expert speaker in Dr. Tara Goddard from Cal Poly, and you had a huge turnout of people. And you just saw how many people really cared and just about making this community safer and more accessible for people riding their bikes. And so, yeah, that just really, I feel like it launched us to a new level of operating space.
Yeah, and if you want to see that that annual report, it's on the website, bikewashow.org, right?
Yep.
We're talking to Tom Albright, the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. Tom, you've been, how long have you been in Northern Nevada here?
Arrived in 2010, right? So during the downswing of the economy, and really quickly just fell in love with Reno. Just couldn't believe I hadn't thought about living here before. But Reno has a bit of a PR thing. And as much as I love it and have loved it, I did move from someplace that was extremely bike friendly. Our whole family left our single car in the parking lot, despite us going to 4 destinations, because we had so much good transit and bike access in Madison, Wisconsin. And so moving here was a bit of an adjustment because we didn't find quite the same resources. But boy, I sure saw the potential. And so I was able to ride, and I want to make it easier and safer for more people to ride here.
Yeah, it's a great place to ride because of the weather, right?
Yeah, the weather, people are really friendly here. And, we love to complain about the drivers, but the vast majority of drivers are really, I find them to be pretty courteous and conscientious. It's really easy to notice the ones that aren't, of course. And we have leaders, businesses, political leaders, elected leaders, people with technical expertise that are really starting to pay attention to it because they realize that it's such a missed opportunity for a place like Reno and Sparks to not be bike friendly. It's so healthy for the community if you have more people riding your bikes.
Yeah. Back to the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You're the president of the board at the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. What areas of growth do you see? You mentioned that we could have more connection, and you're making progress towards that with the summit that's coming up. Any other areas of growth that we could do that you've noticed over the years?
Yeah, so I think biking in many ways is kind of a chicken and egg problem.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And it's both, and it's simultaneously, and it's all of the above, however you want to word it. But what I think we both mean by that is that you need safe and connected and inviting places to ride. So that means a network of connected, mostly protected or separated bike lanes, but quiet neighborhood streets that are well designed are actually in some ways the best of all. And you also need places to park your bike safely. So, for example, when I go to the doctor, I usually have to sweet talk my way in the office with a bike because they don't have a bike rack out there. These are things that other communities have found ways to overcome through zoning and certain requirements for that, just like we have requirements for car parking in many places. So making the space accessible and inviting for people to ride their bikes, and we are making great progress there. But you can't do that and then have no one ride it, right? And most places that do build that kind of infrastructure, they do see a big surge in ridership, but it's not just build it and they will come. That's a big part of it. You also have to encourage people. You also have to teach people how to ride safely and confidently. You have to reduce barriers. So some communities have offered incentives, pre-tax incentives for people of limited economic means, for example, to have access to an e-bike that's useful for them to get to and from work and go about their business. And the data shows us that when people have that, they start, riding that bike a lot more and driving their car a little bit less, which benefits the whole community in addition to that person. So we need that combination of good infrastructure and encouragement. And so a couple things I would cite in each of those two categories is after a lot of the work that, Kai, I know you've been a lot involved with over the years and work that we've tried to continue to push RTC in the city of Reno and nudge them where they need it. They weren't able to follow all of our recommendations, but we're really excited to see them break ground on this safer and better infrastructure downtown, not just for cyclists, but for pedestrians and even for motorists, because they benefit from safer roads too. These kinds of safety projects enhance safety for motorists as well. So and it's good for the economy. And we're really excited to see this biggest little bike network start to move forward. And then on the sort of encouraging people to pick up that what we were talking about with my personal experience about e-bikes, we are really excited to be planning a forum. We don't have the date yet. I think it's going to be like late April, maybe early May. That's going to be a workshop with panelists to help get people information on how they can live a lifestyle that's more car light or even car free. So get people who have been doing it, show and tell of like the gear that's helpful, some tips and tricks, teach people about some of the benefits and give them the confidence and the network support so that they can, try maybe substituting a bike one day a week for their car. And we think that a lot of them are going to like it and want to do it a lot more than that.
Excellent. We've been talking to Thomas Albright. He's the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. Thank you for being on Bike Life Radio.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're listening to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM, and we are on every Sunday at 5:30. We'll see you next week. I'm Kai Plascon.
Like to sing this, I rather hum this, kick the beat with the help from the drumstick, 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 drumstick.
Traffic news on KWNK from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition, hosted by Clutch Creative. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. E-bikes are set to become a real hot topic for statewide lawmakers in the next legislative session. This is after the Las Vegas area passed laws against not only e-bikes, but regular bikes. Last year, the legislature passed a law to study e-bikes and scooters. Some of the ideas being floated include permitting for e-bikes. So how bad are the fatalities on Nevada's roads? What percentage of fatalities and serious injuries are on e-bikes? Well, during a committee presentation on this on March 10th, the Nevada Advisory Committee on Traffic Safety said e-bikes, scooters, and motorcycles only account for 0.5% of fatalities on Nevada's roads and only 1.2% of serious injuries. So to justify more laws, they added people who were walking and riding regular bikes to the statistics of people who are injured. That shot the numbers up to 29% of fatalities. The committee said that in every instance, a car driver was involved in the killing of these pedestrians and bicyclists. Maybe they're going to pass a law that people who are walking need to wear helmets too. People who want to follow the actions of legislators as they consider new laws on vulnerable road users can follow the Nevada Bicycle Coalition on Facebook and the Committee on the Judiciary. The next Nevada Bicycle Coalition meeting is on Monday, April 6th at 6 p.m. We're going to talk about bringing on new board members. Our meetings are all online. The link is going to be posted on our Nevada Bicycle Coalition Facebook page. Free bike rides are every Wednesday around sunset at Believe Plaza in Reno and the Arts District in Las Vegas. Bring bike lights. One of Nevada's biggest bicycle events is coming April 18th. It's called the Tour de Summerlin. It's expected to draw 750 cyclists with 20, 40, and 80-mile rides. It's the 25th anniversary of the ride this year. This week on Bike Life Radio, we're talking to the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. Listen anywhere at 5:30 on Sundays on KWNKradio.org. That's it for traffic news from NevadaBike.org. I'm Kai Plascon. Ride on.
Tie up the wires, I am the fire supplier of inspired rap. Burn the empire back. It's Doomtree live through the wiretap.
So we're on break now?
Sorta. Yeah, we're on a break, and then we're going to come back. Right.
Is my pace okay?
Yeah,
Not too frantic?
Fantastic, yeah. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio, and we're from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. I'm Kai Plascon, right on. We're going to continue our conversation with Thomas Albright, the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. The same conversation that we had last week. Not the same one. It'll be different. I hope it is. But just to remind everybody and to talk a little bit about the participation. How can... I think this is something that I always struggled with, is how do we not preach to the choir, and find people who are like, yeah, I'd like to ride a bike, but I can't because it's dangerous or whatever, and get them involved. Have you had that struggle personally at all too?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's busy. Everybody has their interests, and it's really easy to say you're interested in doing something, and it's human nature that it's harder for all of us to follow through on it. So I think part of it is to be just welcoming and to make it as easy for people as possible. So one nice thing about Reno and Sparks is that we're not the only game in town when it comes to a place where a group of people that can support you in riding your bike. There's clubs like, the peddlers, the wheelmen. There's organizations that are explicitly seeking to be inclusive and welcoming to people who've historically or who are often not made to feel welcome, such as Radical Adventure Riders. There's Reno Bike Project that offers teaching and access to bikes and know-how, and Kiwanis, among others. And there's also these informal riding groups out there, like the Tuesday, the Little Reno Ride, and the Wednesday night ride. Uh-huh. So find the thing that works for you, that you're comfortable with and enjoy. And we find that as an organization that we actually don't organize maybe as many sort of organized rides as some other organizations like us in other places, because we have so many of these other things around here. Uh-huh. We do organize some. And one we're looking forward to, we do a bike bingo during, I think it's is that during Art Town? I think is that when it was? Yeah, and we do some events with Bike Month, commuter challenges. We try to support that as well. So I think a key is just lots of different things repeatedly and reliably out there for folks. But if you'd like to come to one of our meetings, they're the first Tuesday of the month, typically at Craft. So watch our calendar and our socials for 6 p.m. For updates. Occasionally we'll have to switch a venue, but we try to get the word out ahead of time. But come to one, check us out, learn what we're up to, and we'd love to meet you.
Yeah. And the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, I think that, when I was there 4 years ago, I'm still on the board, but one of the things that was important to me was to distinguish ourselves from all the other bike groups that were in town and, have our niche. And I saw that as infrastructure, which isn't the funnest thing for anyone. But, for bike nerds like us, it is kind of fun. What does that mean for people who are listening? What does it mean to be focused on bike infrastructure?
Right. It is kind of a wonky sounding thing. And I think it is important for what we do. It's definitely not all we do. But it's a lever that if you adjust it, produces results. It produces safety results. You see protected bike lanes reducing crashes, not only of cyclists, but of motorists and pedestrians as well, which is a huge issue because we have a glaring, problem and insufficiency, here in the United States and especially in Nevada. But another thing I would like to emphasize about that is the infrastructure that we advocate for is really meant to not just welcome some of my best friends wear Lycra and they ride awfully fast, even without an e-bike.
And they're intense.
Yeah. And I'm actually I've been one of them in much of my life. Yeah. But our target really is the people that would like to ride their bike more, but are held back because they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe, they don't feel welcomed. And so infrastructure properly designed is something that you should feel comfortable riding on, with your kid in a tag-along bike. It's something you should feel comfortable riding if you're not a regular, Lycra-wearing road biker, or, something that you should feel comfortable riding on an adaptive hand cycle. It's really meant to be for everybody.
Trying to just get to work, even. People who may not want to drive or may not have the ability to drive, but they are within 3 to 5 miles of their work and can jump on a bike and go there, but they don't feel safe. I know that when I ride to work, I've started paying attention to how often I look over my shoulder and how intense I am when I'm riding to go to work, and that's there. There's areas where there isn't bike infrastructure, and in those areas I start to feel scared and start looking over my shoulder a whole lot more. And one of those places is on Plum. When I cross Plum going east towards Kitski, and I cross Virginia Street on Plum, and suddenly the bike lane's gone, and then I need to, and the sun's rising, and I'm in the sun, and the cars are behind me, and they can't see me, and it's so focusing on those kinds of infrastructure improvements so that we're not looking over our shoulder all the time can really make a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there, you ride to work every day, just about, right?
Yeah, it's really, really rare that I drive. I have to admit, I broke down, not mentally. I broke down and was in a car during the big snowstorm a couple weeks ago for part of that.
How did that feel to go like, well, I guess I'm going to have to get in the car?
I was jokingly posting on it in social media. I was like, it's drive to work day. And like, say, check it out. Here's my car. Look at this. This is so cool.
Here's my route. Here's how long it took me.
Yeah, I mean, cars are great tools, of course. They have their place. But for me personally, and I'm convinced for many, many people, it's really, I'm happier when I can be getting some fresh air. And I ride all through the winter. I ride in the rain. You don't have to do all of that, though. You can ride when you want. You can ride you can be a fair weather commuter, and not everyone's going to be able to commute. If you ride for fitness, if you ride to your friend's house, if you ride to the grocery store, if you ride to the bar, those are all valid, perfectly valid things to do. So there's no one way to do this, but we think that most people would benefit from the freedom and the ability to ride their bike more, to get around.
We're talking to Thomas Albright. He's the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. I was just on another radio station today talking about e-bikes and laws in southern Nevada, throughout the Las Vegas area and Henderson, that are now really restrictive, not just of e-bikes, but regular bicycles in parks and other places. And the majority of the conversation was about e-motorcycles, and it came across to me that e-motorcycles are now being used to pass laws to restrict e-bike and regular bike use. Have you been following that at all?
Yeah, I have, and it's actually one of the 3 areas that we've identified as a discussion topic for the bike summit that we have coming up with business, agency, and nonprofit and club leaders. But yeah, I think your assessment is right. I think few of us would deny that there are issues with irresponsible and unsafe riding, and few of us would deny that that e-motos specifically, the ones that can go above the class 1, class 2, class 3 designations that cap out with pedal assist at 28 miles per hour or with throttle only at 20 miles per hour, those ones that can carry you beyond that, those are supposed to be licensed, and you should have an operator's license, and those should be registered and licensed if you're going to use them on the road. And from my knowledge, very few of them are. Mostly they're purchased with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's going to be used for off road, but then a kid gets them or an adult gets them and they ride them on the street. And yeah, I think few of us would deny that there aren't some problems with that. But the problem is, and I'll use an analogy here, if anyone's ever ridden a bike, you've encountered comically bad bike racks. Like bike racks that might look nice. They might even be artistic, but they're really, really impractical to use. And it's as if the person who designed the bike rack had never used that bike rack before, right? They're not someone who rides. Yeah. Well, the people who are designing some of these laws oftentimes don't know anything about biking. They don't know how to safely ride their bike. They might maybe even have some responsibility over it, but they personally may not do it. And so that's a bad combination. And I feel that some of these, there's a risk that you're going to go too far. When bikes are banned from sidewalks, and yes, we also advocate for pedestrians, people that are using adaptive devices as mobility. We try to support all of those things. And riding your bike irresponsibly on the sidewalk can be dangerous and annoying to pedestrians. But riding your bike on the sidewalk is also sometimes the only choice that people have when their only road is, say, something like East Plum or much of Prater, where there's really no good space to ride your bike safely in there, short of taking the lane, which not everyone wants to do or is really comfortable doing. And so people are put in this position of having to ride on the sidewalk. So it's a symptom when people are riding on the sidewalk. Or in parks. Yeah.
You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio, and we're talking to Tom Albright, the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. Yeah, that was one of the things that has occurred to me over the years is that cyclists being on the sidewalk, or e-scooters being on the sidewalk, or skateboarders being on the sidewalk, it's because they've got no other place to be safe. And that's the fault of the road builders and the road designers. And instead, it kind of comes across or results in conflict between vulnerable road users, pedestrians and cyclists and skaters, and then cars too, because the drivers are uncomfortable when there's vulnerable road users around them, and that makes everybody angry. Which I think that in the background, the road was designed at some point and redesigned again, and we miss that element in our conflict.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's not an easy thing to change always, because people are very used to the way things are. I mean, you try to change any element of the road infrastructure, and there's a lot of people that probably haven't studied a lot of transportation engineering or planning or anything like that will scream bloody murder about a roundabout versus stoplights or something like that. And so any kind of change is usually met with some vocal resistance.
Yeah. Tom Albright of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, the president. Anything else that you'd like to add about the future? What's next for the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance?
Yeah, well, we are, I think we're becoming more sort of serious and sort of professionalized, if you will. We're a small organization still. We don't have like a paid executive director or anything like that. But we've started to take on folks that help us with different tasks in the capacity of contractors. We're running lots of bike valets right now. We've like quintupled or something like that the number of bike valets we do in a year, thanks to our contractor Zane, who's done a great job being responsible for that. So come to Riverside Farmers Market. That's the one that's ongoing every Sunday. But pretty soon we'll be doing Earth Day. We'll be adding back the truck. The food truck events, and also we're really making a push so that the new soccer stadium, slated to be put in Kitski, where the old Jones West Ford's dealership was located, to make sure that they're thinking about the people that are going to walk, bike, take the bus there, because that's a pretty large and overlooked constituency, and so we're working to have ride to the stadium events, make sure they're doing some things like valet bike parking and things like bike valet and stuff like that to make it attractive for that group. Because the neighborhoods around there, I think it's about 15% of the households don't have a single car. So we think it's a great fit to have a centrally located stadium where, sure, you can drive your car there, but maybe you'll have a lot of fun organizing with a group of people that are riding their bike from a nearby park, and they all ride en masse to the stadium. So we're trying to help encourage some fun ways and fun alternatives for people there.
Yeah. Tom Albright of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. You're in your second year. Where are you at in your presidency of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance?
Just started the third year, of doing this.
And so, what are you thinking is coming next for you personally? I mean, you've been leading the organization.
Yeah. So it's been really interesting. I've learned a ton in this role, and fairly shortly, I think we should transition to someone else in this role. But I look forward to staying involved in some capacity, and it's certainly helping with the transition when the time comes. But I'm not ready to do that yet, though. I've got big ambitions for this coming year, but I'm also really happy that. In my professional capacity, in my day job, I study urban sustainability, urban climate, and conservation kinds of stuff. And so bikes actually comes up a lot in the classroom, and even in some of my research. So I do some research related to bike safety and things like that. So I'm kind of fortunate that I can kind of my day job and this role as the board president, there's some synergies there that are pretty fun too.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was pretty neat is it's an opportunity to learn, like you're already a bike advocate because you ride your bike, but what does it mean to be a real bike advocate where you're going every month and having a meeting and you have activities that you're doing to promote safety and bring people together. Talk a little bit about, you said you learned a lot. So the opportunity to learn as a leader, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, but there's probably a lot to say about that. But the first thing that comes to mind is, when you bike for yourself, you have your own set of reasons, but you don't really have to justify it. You just sort of feel it, and you do it. And if you like it, you do more of it. And that's what a lot of us do. But when you work with an organization like Truckee Meadows Bike Alliance, you have to really think about all the different perspectives and situations that people are in, and think about how biking can relate to them. And it's like it's not even Kevin Bacon. I can connect biking to just about anything you can think of with only like one or two connections, because I just really believe in it that much. But finding what those connections are for individual people is always different. And so it's a really interesting and satisfying challenge to think about how biking can help, for example, our aging population. ARP, believe it or not, plays a big role in helping ensure that cities are healthy places for aging people and people that frankly maybe have to step back from the car, but maybe they can ride certain kinds of bikes to get around. So, thinking about all these different perspectives and trying to serve all of them to their benefit is a really interesting challenge.
Yeah. All right. We've been talking to Tom Albright, the president of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, bikewashoe.org. Is there anything that we missed? Anything you'd like to add that you were really hoping to talk about?
Kids. We, in our generation, and, Kai, you and I aren't that far off in age, but depending on where and when you grew up, chances are you are much more likely to be able to ride your bike or walk to school than kids are today for a variety of reasons. But I really think that we lose something, and there's a lot of evidence to back this, if the only experience kids have getting to and from school is in the back of their parents' car staring at a screen, right? Bikes and walking and sometimes taking the bus or some combination of those things. There's tons of studies that show that kids do better. They're more resilient. They're more socially resilient. They're paying more attention in school. They're healthier when they can incorporate that kind of travel to and from school every day, or at least some days of the week. So getting kids experiences riding bikes, we think is a gift that pays them dividends in many facets of their life, and also means that when they grow up, they're going to be hanging out with us, doing fun rides, doing events, and maybe even some advocacy too. So it's what's not to like about that.
Yeah. Tom Albright of the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance, bikewashow.org. You've been listening to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM. Thanks for being on Bike Life Radio.
My pleasure. Thanks for what you're doing.
All right. Bike Life Radio is on every Sunday at 5:30. We'll see you next week. I'm Kai Plascon. Ride on.